What's going on, folks? It's your friendly neighborhood Professor Cag, swinging through the hallways, highways, and byways of a local Zoom room near you. And today I want to actually come to you all with a new lecture, mini lecture, and a new video on how to write an outline. Now, this is all in preparation for your upcoming discussion board number 2 assignment, which is due this Friday by 11:59 p.m. Here on our Canvas, as we can see under course module 2. You can actually see the discussion board number 2 posted here underneath the dialogue activities, okay? And then also this is in preparation for your submission of your first writing assignment, your critical memoirs. Now, I want to my goal today is really to accomplish 3 things. One, to introduce you all to, for those of you especially who don't know, how to write an outline, okay? An alphanumeric outline. That's 1. 2, I'm going to show you how to compose an outline. So first we'll discuss what an outline is. It'll be a brief introduction. Then I'll walk you through the steps on how to put it together. And next, lastly, I'm going to show you how to connect your outline as a pre-writing activity to your writing assignment number 1, okay? And if you could connect it to writing assignment number 1, you can also, really the basic structure is going to be most applicable for the discussion board number 2, all right? So without further ado, let's go ahead on, let's get started. First and foremost, under course module number 2, how to build critical memoirs, I'm going to actually kind of skip through the personal experience tab and go directly to the dialogue, just so that way I can help to set this up and introduce it in a way that is grounded and that's connected with some of the activities that we have to do. Okay, so as you kind of move through course module number 2 and you move through the personal experience, right? You've watched the film called Dope. You think it's dope. You've read through the PowerPoint and the posts on, what do narratives do? How are stories structured? What do we mean by narrative structure? Then you get to the dialogue activities, and here is where you see something called sample outline, along with discussion board number 2, critical memoir outlines, okay? Now, when you first get here, you might be thinking, some of you, wait, what the heck is an outline? I mean, I've heard of it before, but I don't really know exactly what it is. How do I do it? And what really is the idea behind an outline? I kind of remember maybe my 3rd grade teacher talking about it, maybe one of my instructors in high school, but I don't really remember anything much beyond them just mentioning it. That's what we're here today to discuss, okay? So, by way of introductions, I want to actually highlight for you all a brief PowerPoint presentation that I've actually put together. And the idea behind this PowerPoint presentation here is to introduce you to what we call formally the writing process. Okay. Now, the writing process is a series of steps that an individual takes in order to develop their ideas, which include, there are 5 steps. Okay. 5 steps to the writing process. The first is planning and shaping. The second step is drafting. The third step is revising. And the fourth step refers to editing and proofreading. Okay. The 5th and final step is what we are ready to submit, is when we're ready to submit, called the final draft. All right. So those 5 steps are the 5 keys to the writing process. It is vitally important that you memorize those. Let me actually dive in a little bit deeper and do a little further explanation about what each step is and how it functions. Okay. First and foremost, the first step, planning and shaping. All ideas, all essays, all writing assignments, out of necessity, should begin with planning and shaping. Now, many of you just decide to jump right on into the writing the actual assignment. And while that can actually work for some, I've certainly done it too as well. There was a period of time, I believe, in my student life where I would just quite simply, at least when I was in high school, I would actually wait until the day that the essay is due to write the entire thing. And then boom. That is a textbook definition of what is not engaging the writing process. Okay? Learn from my mistakes. If you find that you are one of those writers, one of those individuals who does not engage with the writing process, then I'm going to challenge you to actually do it. And if you need to, you can actually schedule an office hours appointment with me to further clarify, give you some feedback, or to actually give you some pointers, tips, and tricks on how to navigate your way through the writing process. But suffice it to say that the first step of the writing process begins with planning and shaping. This is the period of time in which we're kind of discovering ideas and we're collecting our thoughts, particularly in preparation for the writing project. Now, the three specific activities that we do or that writers do in order to gather their ideas and to plan and to shape and mold, right, to refine this big, massive Mobius thing that we call our essay, how it starts. The first activity is brainstorming. The second is called outlining, which is what we're here to talk about today. And then the third is free writing. Now, you could combine all three, or you could do one instead of the other. You could combine two, right, out of the three. But whichever way it is that you choose to go, what I like to actually teach my students is how to do each one individually and then show them how to combine two in particular that would always help. It's always worked in every single class for the last more than a decade and a half that I've actually been teaching. It's always worked to help get students started on their essays. Okay, so I'll talk with you all a little bit about what that looks like. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about brainstorming. Okay, what is brainstorming? What does it look like? Well, many of you may have actually seen it or at least heard of it before, right? Brainstorming looks like this. It's where you actually have another way that people might have actually even heard of it is as a web cluster, right? Or a cluster chart. Whatever the nomenclature may actually be, whatever the name is that you may have actually heard, they generally communicate the same or similar ideas, right? Mind mapping, word clusters, right? Brainstorming, mind maps, all of those communicate and circulate around this central idea of plotting and planning your ideas in a way that doesn't have any particular kind of form, right? Now, for a lot of my students who typically tend to try to avoid writing an outline, for whatever the reason may actually be, find that writing a brainstorm, right, doing a word map, right, or a mind map of their ideas, and even I myself actually utilize this form here pretty effectively and very often. Right. This is one of the best ways to actually plot your ideas, get your ideas out of your head and get them onto the page. Okay. Now, this is the idea and the structure of a mind map starts with a central topic in the center. Okay. And then it branches out. So let's say, for example, if I'm thinking about if I'm thinking about an idea for my critical memoir, right, and I'm trying to think about, okay, well, what's a time period and a moment that I had to overcome a specific challenge, right? For me, I'm just going to go off the top of the head, right? So for me, high school, very challenging, extremely challenging, very difficult. Not that I'm going to write about this, but some of the things, the thoughts that kind of pop up in my head in regards to the reason why it was so difficult for me was at the very least, or not the least of which, no, excuse me, when I think about the reasons as to why it was difficult for me, not the least of which actually pops up into my head that, all of my grandparents died in my high school year, one right after another, from ninth grade all the way through 12th grade. Okay. Every single one of my grandparents passed away. That's one reason why it was difficult. The other is because I was trying to figure out and plot what the next steps for my life was going to be like. College, possibly finding a job, right? Those sort of kind of things. And then, of course, right, the typical teenage angst and issues that pop up from high school, girls, friends, love interests, driving, right, getting my license, all those things there kind of just were weighing on me. You know, SATs, you know, all those sort of kind of things. Prom, graduation. So that's just kind of where my thinking is. The next step that I'm going to actually take is to write down the topic right here in the center, right? High school challenges. And then I'm just going to kind of list and think about some of those, some of the moments, not the things, but the moments that were super challenging for me. Now, one of those moments had to be entering into high school, right? Another moment was certainly going to my first high school dance, okay? Another was the death of my first grandparent. Now, I'm just kind of plotting these things here out. In the next or second rung, what you all see as these notes, these post-it notes, all the way around the central idea, all right? These would be the equivalent of those moments that I'm identifying here, okay? All right. So this is the technique otherwise known as mind mapping. It just quite simply helps to give you a broad view, a broad stroke of what the time period and the moment is that you're going to actually write about. Okay. You're going to start off with the central core idea, and then you branch out to other related thoughts. That's the thinking behind mind maps or brainstorming techniques. Now, the next technique is outlining. Okay. Now, outlining actually comes in the form of a much more structured exercise, right? So when it comes to outlining, I'm going to use as my model, my central subject matter, the writing process. Okay, so if, as it pertains to Professor Cagg's class, right, we always want to make sure that we have a proper format. Okay, so that means that I need to include a header. I'm going to put my last name, Cagnolati. I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to insert page number. Make sure that it's aligned to the right. Show page number on the first page. Boom. Now I'm done. I need to actually make sure that this is in the proper font, not Cambria, which is automatic setting from Microsoft Word. I need to change it to Times New Roman. And even the number I must change to Times New Roman. Okay? All right. Now we can move on. Next, I need to make sure that I have my header. Excuse me, I have my header over here. I need to make sure I have my heading. Let me put my, if I was a student, right? My first and last name, my professor's name. Also, too, my class and section number, English C1000, section number 30141. And then lastly but not leastly, the date in ascending order, or what's called international standard, right? Where we have the day, month, year, right? 3 June 2026. And then, of course, yes, you need an outline for every single paper that you do. Every informal and formal writing assignment that you submit your discussion boards should always have a proper heading, a header, as well as an actual title too as well. No exceptions. Get in the habit of doing just that. All right. So moving on, I want to start off with the central idea or the main lesson. If I'm writing an outline, I want to at least kind of start to think about, right, move from the brainstorming technique, right, to the outlining technique, right, where I'm taking all those random ideas and I'm now able to put them into some sort of format and structure, right, that's organized and orderly. So by this time, I want to think about what my idea, my central idea is, or the main point of my entire narrative. In this case, utilizing the writing process as our main subject matter, outlining the writing process, the central idea would actually communicate that the writing process, this is the definition of the writing process is a complex sequence of changes that starts the moment one begins thinking about a subject, and it ends when they complete a final draft. Now, I'm going to actually take a pause for the calls right quick here because I don't want this video to be too long. I will see you in just a minute, right after these quick commercial breaks.